Welcome to another edition of Weekly Digest, a government information agency program that keeps you informed on what the administration has been doing that will create a better environment for citizens. I'm your host, Sarasula Rambayal. Thank you for joining us. In this week's presentation for the period August 16 to 22nd, 2014, Guyana gains another rice market, Amerindian Heritage Month 2014 launch, and monitoring for chikungunya and Ebola continue. Guyana is on its way to becoming one of the most important suppliers in Panama's rice market. The government of Guyana and Panama has signed an agreement where Panama will purchase approximately 5,000 tons of rice per month from Guyana, following a recent meeting between delegations from both countries.
This new rice agreement came about after a meeting between President Donald Ramotar and Panama's President Juan Carlos Varela on August 6. Guyana will supply approximately 5,000 tons of rice per month to Panama in 2014 and will continue to do so in 2015, provided that the terms of agreement are met to the satisfaction of the two countries. Should this agreement continue past 2014, annually Panama will receive 50,000 to 60,000 tons of rice from Guyana.
Panama imports about 150,000 tons of rice on an annual basis. They are also a producer, you should know, but they cannot meet their own demands.
Minister Ramsamy noted that the supply of an additional 100,000 tons of rice to Panama will be opened for bids from both Guyanese and American suppliers. The Rice Exploitation Agreement forms one aspect of a larger agreement for agriculture and trade partnership between Panama and Guyana, for which a memorandum of agreement was signed.
The recent Caribbean Press book launch showcased 13 titles and 16 volumes of writing that are fundamental to Guyana's literature and history, and has seen the celebration of an achievement by Guyanese writers.
Over a dozen Guyanese publications were highlighted by the Guyana Press publication recently. This initiative is part of an ongoing approach by the Caribbean Press publication and the government of Guyana to promote local writers. Attendees were very pleased with the publications that were presented to them through a segment of reading in which the audience went from having silent moments to loud laughter and applause.
This is something that came out of Carifesta 10, 2008, that was held in Guyana. And discussions took place between the then President Barack Jagdeo, David Dabidine, and a number of leading Caribbean writers. Coming out of that discussion was the idea that something could be done to address the problem of publication in the Caribbean, and in particular in Guyana, and the shortage of publishing houses. And the idea of the Caribbean Press was born.
Among the launch titles were Heads and Tails by Pearl Lewis, My Father's Wish by Andrew D.O. Hudson, Lyndon Forbes Sampson's Burnham's Assembly Speeches, Volumes 2 and 3, The Dumb and the Brave by Tirumani Bisundial, The Hinterlands by Stanley Nimitali, and The Beacons of Excellence by Edgar Mittelholzer.
Activities for Amerindian Heritage Month 2014 will be observed under the theme Traditional Embodiment for Amerindian Development, which will focus on the culture and development of the descendants of Guyana's first people.
The month-long activities for Amerindian Heritage Month will be celebrated under the theme Traditional Embodiment for Amerindian Development. During September, several activities will showcase those developments, including craft and food exhibitions, sports, reflection on the life of Stephen Campbell, the first Amerindian MP, and an educational tour for Amerindian students from Region 1 to Georgetown. Heritage Village this year will be in Region 7 at Carrow Village.
The big event is on the 1st of September, and that is the launch. And we're expecting about more than 500 persons at the National Exhibition Complex at Sophia. We're going to have the cultural groups coming in from Region 1, Region 7, Region 8, and Region 9. And we're also going to have the YY coming from Canary. They're going to perform on the first day. That's on the launch. They're going to do a cultural item for us.
Government over the years has contributed significantly to the lives of Guyana's first descendants, and today, Amerindians are found in all spheres of development. September was designated Heritage Month in 1995 by the late former President Dr. Cherry Jagan.
With the recording of 76 cases of chikungunya in Guyana, it has been recognized that greater precautionary measures are needed to stave off the virus.
Chief Medical Officer Dr. Shamdev Prasad has confirmed that Guyana has recorded 76 cases of the chikungunya disease as of August 20, and based on reports coming from health facilities across the country, there are more suspected cases.
I'm sure there might be more persons that have milder forms of the diseases, but these are what were actually reported to our health facilities. Some of the samples are still awaiting testing. Since the Caribbean Public Health Agency laboratory in Trinidad is doing all of the testing, both for Guyana but all the other countries across the region.
While the prevalence of chikungunya has been more pronounced in regions 5 and 6, and to some extent 4, there have been 3 reported cases in region 10, but these are associated with traveling and not active transmission. Chikungunya is a mosquito-borne disease transmitted by the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is also known to spread viruses such as dengue and yellow fever.
Even though fogging and some more general environmental controls are necessary, I think there's also some responsibility for individuals to control these mosquitoes. We have fogging cycles that were ongoing in region 6, parts of region 5, and even parts of region 4. We were unable to start region 3 and 10.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health is on high alert and has instituted a number of measures in light of the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. The ministry has been conducting awareness sessions with various personnel at the Cherry Jagan International Airport, including port health workers, customs, and immigration and airline staff. Dr. Prasad said that while there are no Ebola cases in South America and the Caribbean, any instance of this disease at this point in time would be as a result of travelers.
Stay tuned, more of the digest after the break.
Guyana's tourism sector is definitely on the rise. In fact, even in a fledgling stage, it can still rival those of the Caribbean. Now, with an investment of $800 million for the establishment of a hospitality institute, the country is poised to receive even more international recognition.
Parents with school-aged children will achieve a measure of relief with the provision of $10,000 per school year for all school children in the public schools. This from the 2014 budget is in addition to the school uniform voucher, which will continue to be distributed. The provision of $1 billion via the national budget for the execution of cleaning and sanitation works in the nation's municipalities is an indication of government's commitment towards providing a healthy environment and keeping its citizens safe from various diseases spread by insanitary conditions. Half of this amount will be used to clean the capital city of Georgetown and begin the process of restoring it to its former status of the Garden City. You are watching the Weekly Digest. A GDF Chinese military multi-million-dollar aid agreement has seen Guyana getting military aid from China to enable better defense of the country's borders.
A military aid agreement between the Guyana Defense Force GDF and the People's Liberation Army PLA of China has seen approximately US $4.8 million being provided in military assistance. Since the 1970s, China and the PLA have been providing military assistance to the GDF.
Yours is another of several reciprocal visits between the Guyana Defense Force and the People's Liberation Army of China.
孔将军，您此次率团来访问圭亚那，是中国人民解放军对圭亚那国防军有关人员此前访华的一次对等回访。
And we remain heartened and greatly appreciative to you for the continued military assistance as we work collectively towards the strengthening of our mutual relationships between our two nations and our military forces.
To date, many GDF officers have benefited from tactical, operational, and strategic levels of training in China. In fact, almost all of the present senior leadership would have attended military training courses and/or seminars in that country.
这些援助完全是无条件的，
And
不附加任何政治条件的。
This military assistance is not a fix with political implication and political conditions.
接下来呢，我们再具体细谈。
And I think we can further our detailed discussion in the later consultations.
Meanwhile, an excavator, ambulance, front-end loaders, and inflatable boats with engine, among other pieces of equipment, were handed over to the GDF as well.
With the recent highly publicized negative reporting on operations within the forestry sector and its investors, Commissioner of the Guyana Forestry Commission, James Singh, has debunked many of the allegations, while Region 10 loggers are now concerned about the possible negative impacts it could have on their business.
Commissioner Singh has said that the misinformation being propelled in some sections of the media about the Commission's operation does not only reflect unprofessionalism, but can also have a negative impact on the sector's contribution to the economy. During a press briefing to bring the public up to speed on the sector's operations and practices, Singh said he believes that the misinformation being fed to the public by the Kaitro News is due to a lack of knowledge and understanding of forestry operations and procedures.
When things like this go in newspapers and it's censored, because of the internet and all these facilities, the information is not only restricted to Guyana, it is going overseas, globally, and it affects the markets of Guyana. And who are the ones that suffer? The community forestry operators and the small operators and the TSA holders and so on. I don't think it's the role of any newspaper or any media house to be doing that.
Meanwhile, the Region 10 Loggers Association, who recently held a forum to address their concerns, have reiterated the need for investors in the sector.
Unfortunately, whatever is being said in the media is being treated as gospel in the international community. And if we sell on the international community, then the developed country takes illegal stuff very seriously. And we're here to say that whatever we do is legal and sustainable. We are a group of people who depend primarily on logging for a livelihood, and we trust that this, whatever we come here to do today, will go in a very, I should say, organized way so that we can achieve our benefit.
We need the Chinese, not just Baishanin, but the Chinese in general. Our operation depends a lot on the Chinese investment and their input. Right now, if you think about closing, moving the Chinese out here, a lot of these organizations would close down.
Recently, some sections of the media started an attack on Baishan Ling's forestry operations, which the president deemed as an attack on foreign investors and a move to scare off potential investors. While the reports seek to suggest that special privileges have been given to the company, the president has noted that the company has been operating in keeping with regulations which are spread across the board for persons with similar arrangements.
The efforts of outstanding members of community policing groups from the various police divisions across the country were duly recognized by the Home Affairs Ministry as it convened the first ever award ceremony in honor of this organization that is driven by volunteerism. Plaques and trophies were handed out to 12 CPGs, 17 members of individual groups, 5 mistresses and 2 officers who performed creditably in liaising with the groups in their respective divisions and the National Community Policing Executive Body and by extension the Ministry of Home Affairs.
We are hopeful that this stimulates greater interest in the community policing movement and that we can regenerate in our communities the interest and commitment to defend our communities, because only by doing that we can feel safe.
The 17 CPG members were drawn from the following groups: Festival City, South Rhineville Gardens, Bath, Waterloo, Experiment, Shieldstone, Bushlot, Vigilance, Bladen Hall, Brides Lust, North, Lusiknan Pasture, Good Hope, Supanam, Anna Regina North, and Sarah, Belle Plain, and Eastern Wakenham.
This aspect of the voluntary commitment and dedication by members of community policing groups and other volunteer organizations in the country. Community policing is only one volunteer organization in Guyana. There are many others, NGOs and so on, that I believe is the bedrock of community policing. Is the bedrock of community policing. people prepared to give, even if it is 1 hour. Even if it is 1 hour. Because a crime is committed in a split second. A person could die, a person could be shot, a person could be robbed in a matter of seconds or minutes.
Guyana is the only country in the Caribbean that has such a vibrant, functional, and well-organized community policing organization. It has a membership of 4,424 citizens across the country, making it the largest volunteer-driven body in Guyana. Stay tuned. More of the Weekly Digest after the break.
Ghana is set to achieve the goal set by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF of universal birth registration by 2015. The General Register Office has launched an intensive campaign. It has decentralized its services to specifically cater to the needs of residents living in the interior location. Bedside registration is also done in several public hospitals. There are now 200 registration centers operating in the 10 regions. Citizens are urged to ensure that all births are registered. The modernization of the Justice Administration system, the MJAS project, has been completed through a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. Achievements made under the project include amended and new laws, training for personnel within the sector, reduction of the severe case backlog, the refurbishing of courts, increased numbers of judicial officers and training, publication of law reports and their indices online, the establishment of a DPP office in Berbice, computerization of several connected systems, among other aspects.
During Cabinet's statutory meeting at the Office of the President on August 12, several issues of national concern were discussed. The media was subsequently briefed on Cabinet's deliberations. At its August 19 statutory meeting, Cabinet gave the green light to 8 contracts in the agriculture, infrastructure, health, and maritime sectors. The ruling party has written to the Guyana Elections Commission requesting an extension to the ongoing claims and objection period.
Cabinet's interest continued on the list that had been circulated by GCOM and also the claims and objections period that had been instituted by GCOM after the 6th round of continuous registration. Where the list was concerned, the earnest desire of Cabinet was to ensure a clean list. Where the claims and objection period was concerned, Cabinet wanted abundant conviction that the time that had been allocated for this process, claims and objections, was enough, it was suitable for the tasks.
The government maintained that attention must be given to the large number of transfers that reportedly had to be made in the context of population shifts since the 2011 general and regional elections. Meanwhile, given that all of the necessary procedures have been completed, Guyana is now anticipating the 4th payment from Norway agreement.
Guyana has been collaborating, that is, agencies, subject agencies, Forestry Commission, Office of Climate Change, Project Management Office, and the Office of the President. They've all been collaborating with their international counterparts. And that collaboration and the results of the collaboration is instructive. I think it would be fair to say that a comprehensive review and examination, a comprehensive review and examination of that collaboration, the results of that collaboration, is the best way of defining how well Guyana has performed, particularly in reference to our obligations.
The Clean Up Guyana project is picking up momentum in the city. Contracts to the tune of $34 million have thus far been awarded for the desilting of the 7 canals in Georgetown.
The intention of spending close to $100 million aggregately to deal with a number of matters at Le Repentier Cemetery, including the drainage system, including the internal roads, including bridges, repairs to rehabilitation of the beds, and the involvement, the use of the Guyana Prison Service to expedite the rehabilitation of aspects of work in the Le Repentier Cemetery.
For the cleanup campaign for the rest of the country, several mini excavators and fogging machines will also be procured. And now for perspectives with Dr. Prem Mizir.
Some ordinary folks believe that the combined opposition, AFC, and APNU no confidence proposal is a joke. They believe that the no confidence vote triggering a general and regional election will not change anything because of a possible recurrence of the same electoral equation in Parliament. And there is the view that AFC and APNU in Parliament should devote their energies toward keeping Guyana first and not consistently set out to decimate the PPPC government's capital projects. And a further view that the constant hustle to bring the government down to its knees would bring few positive dividends. Indeed, the PPPC government can opt to call an election prior to any parliamentary debate on the no confidence proposal. However, regardless of who or what triggers the calling of an election, ordinary people recognize that the PPPC government has a mandate from the electorate for 5 years to execute a program with which apparently APNU and AFC opposition does not find favor. Any opposition can and should have the right to bring a no confidence proposal against any government, only if its own hands are clean, in that it has not willfully obstruct the government's developmental programs. This kind of obstruction would certainly mean working against ordinary people. On many occasions, APNU and AFC, with a 1-seat majority in Parliament, have flexed their muscles relentlessly to reduce the PPPC government's executive power to exercise its mandate. And now there is the AFC and APNU's dangling of the no confidence trick as their latest ploy. This no confidence proposal, however, has limited legitimacy because of the opposition's desperation to smell the leather, as the Irish would say, or seeking to enter government through any means. I say this because the opposition sets out each day to put a brake on everything the government does, and in the process showing no concern for the crisis consuming the poor and vulnerable through its own action. The opposition's no confidence proposal represents a rush to judgment. It takes no ownership for the possible consequences of that action. And in so doing, the opposition shirks its responsibility to the nation, thereby evading fulfillment of its political function. An opposition becomes effective when it is not happy only to condemn government actions. If the opposition is a genuine counterpower, then it is beholden to the people to convince them that its no confidence proposal is correct and that of the government is wrong. This is not the case, however, in Guyana. Every day, ordinary people are afflicted with the combined opposition's condemnation of governmental actions, as if anything that the government does is of no value to the people. Substantive and evidence-based criticisms are not part of the opposition's repertoire in the legislature. And even with the AFC and APNU no confidence proposal really a smoke screen, there is to it no substance that is necessary for establishing democratic legitimacy and no convincing argument that the no confidence proposal is the right thing to do. I thank you.
And with those features, we have come to the end of this edition of Weekly Digest. But before we go, here's a recap of the highlights. Guyana gains unauthorized market, Amerindian Month 2014 launched, and chikungunya and Ebola continues to be monitored. Please note that Weekly Digest and other government information can be found on our website, www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at ginagovgy@gmail.com. Join us again next week as we highlight more of government's programs and policies which are enhancing the lives of Guyanese. I'm Ursula Ramlayal. Do have a safe week ahead. Goodbye.